I've had these things on the hoist, and I've also sat around long enough to watch the second half of the story. The same ute coming back in as a trade, and the number the appraiser writes on the sheet after he's walked around it once with a torch. That number never matches what the owner has in his head. Not because the owner is silly, because nobody tells you the other half. So this is 12 Chinese utes that have gone backwards hard in Australia between 2025 and 2026, what each one actually lost, and why. Some of these are genuinely good utes. That's the part people get wrong. Depreciation is not a report card on engineering. Two of these I'd happily own and keep for a decade, and by the end you'll have something better than a list. You'll have the method I use to work out what any of these is really worth today, which takes about half an hour and costs nothing, and which will save you from the two mistakes that cost the most money in this segment. Stay with me for the last one on this list, because it lost more value than most people spend on a whole ute, and here's the strange part. It's still sitting on the price list at almost exactly the number it launched at. There's also one in the middle that got deleted from the range about 6 weeks after somebody paid full retail for it. That one still bothers me. Here's the thread that runs through all 12, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. There are two prices on every new ute in this country. There's the recommended retail price, the one the valuation guides are built around, and the one that ends up on the window sticker in the review. And there's the number the ute actually leaves the yard for. The drive-away deal, the ABN price, the limited time offer, the cashback, the free tray. On mainstream Japanese utes, those two numbers sit reasonably close together. On the Chinese ones, they can be $8,000 or $9,000 apart. Now think about what that does when you go to sell. The bloke looking at your 2-year-old ute isn't comparing it to the retail price you were quoted. He's comparing it to whatever an unregistered brand new one costs this month, with a fresh 7-year warranty and no history. Every time a brand cuts its drive-away price to shift stock, the ceiling above every used example drops in the same week. Not gradually, immediately. There's data behind the shape of this too. The ADA and Autograb annual work put a 1-year-old EV in Australia down about 25% on average, petrol around 11.5, and hybrids at under 2. I'll be honest, that hybrid figure looks far too kind to me, and I think it comes from a stretch when used hybrids were genuinely scarce. That's my read, not something the report says. But the ranking is right, and utes carrying new drivetrains and new badges sit at the wrong end of it. 1. The old GWM Ute Cannon X, the 2020 to 2023 shape. This is the one with real history now, so it tells you the most. New, the Cannon X was $40,990 drive away, and the base Cannon was $33,990. Today, a 2021 Cannon X with 130,000 kilometers is advertised by dealers at around $22,000, and even the tidy 60,000 kilometer ones sit in the mid to high 20s. That's a dealer asking price, remember? A trade-in offer on a tired one is going to start with a 1, and I'd want to be clear. That's my expectation from watching appraisals, rather than a published figure. Why so hard? 2 reasons that have nothing to do with the ute being bad. First, it tows 3 ton, not 3.5. In 2020, nobody blinked. In 2026, every used buyer in the country has a caravan brochure open, and 3,500 is the number he's shopping for. So your Canon gets filtered out of half the searches before a human ever sees it. Second, the servicing on the early ones is every 10,000 kilometers. To a used buyer, that reads as more visits and more cost, whether or not it actually works out that way. The engineering was fine. I've driven them, they're solid, the 8-speed is decent, and there are plenty out there that have worked hard and kept going. The market just moved the goalposts underneath them. 2. The LDV T60 Max Pro. Short one, this. It was already the cheapest way into a Ford Earth-4 dual cab, and in 2025, LDV ran it out with a $3,000 discount plus a $1,500 gift card, which put the auto at $37,900 drive away for business buyers against a normal price above $43,000. In 2026, you can still find them advertised new around $34,190 drive away. When the brand new one is that cheap, there is simply no room underneath it for a 3-year-old one to be worth much. Cars24 reckons the T60 holds roughly 50 to 55% over 3 years against 70 to 75 for a Hilux. That's a dealer's estimate, and I'd treat it as a ballpark, but it matches what I see on the trade sheets. 3. The LDV T60 Max Plus, the range topper, and this one is the clearest example of the two-price problem in the whole segment. The guide's listed above $50,500. Meanwhile, dealers in Queensland and New South Wales have been advertising brand new 2026 Max Plus Utes at $41,990 and $42,990 drive away. Same Ute. Nearly $9,000 between the number in the valuation system and the number a human being can actually pay on a Saturday. If you bought one and someone told you it was a $50,000 Ute, you were told something technically true and practically useless. When you sell, the buyer prices off the real street number, not the sticker. And here's the bit that stings. The difference wasn't a discount you banked, it was a discount you were shown for the JSE T9. Genuinely interesting Ute, this one. 5-star ANCAP, 7-year unlimited kilometre warranty, 120 kilowatts and 410 Newton meters. And JSE made a lot of noise about it being Australia's safest Ute. It listed at 42,660 tools before on-roads. Then July 2025 arrived and the run-out offer put the Oasis at 39,990 drive away nationally, about $5,000 off. By December, there was $3,500 cashback on every MY25 dual cab. By April 2026, the Trade Pro cab chassis was $38,990 with a genuine alloy tray thrown in and fitted. Follow that chain from the point of view of somebody who bought early. Every one of those offers was a good deal for the person taking it, and every one of them lowered the roof over your Ute. Then there's volume, which people underrate badly. JAC sold 789 T9s in the first 5 months of 2025. Over the same stretch, the LDV T60 did 1,046, and the GWM Canon 1,032. Fewer Utes on the road means fewer people searching for one, means yours sits, means the dealer bids low, because he doesn't know how long it'll be parked out the back. Thin used pools don't just lower the price, they lower the confidence, and the price follows. 5. The Foton Tunland V9-S. Very quick, because there isn't much history to work with. Foton came back into Australia in the second half of 2025 with a 4-model range, and the V9-S sits at the top at $49,999 tip before on-roads, which lands somewhere around $55,000 drive away on the MY25s and a bit under $53,000 on the MY26s. Same Ute, 1 model year apart, a couple of $1,000s different before anybody has even driven one. Foton has been in and out of this market before. That history is priced in whether it's fair or not. 6. The current GWM Canon, and specifically the nearly new Trap. A 2025 Canon Premium with 13,500 kilometres was advertised at $32,582 drive away, while a brand new Premium was being offered around $38,500. $6,000 to skip a year and the wear. Fine. But I also found a 2025 Canon Vanta with 8 kilometres on the odometer, a demonstrator, essentially untouched, advertised at $45,101 drive away, while the new car offer on a Vanta was $45,490. Read that again. $400 between a registered demo and a factory fresh one with the full warranty clock. That's not a bargain, that's a trap. And it catches people constantly because demo sounds like discount. If you're looking at a nearly new Chinese Ute, get the brand's current national drive away offer up on your phone first, every time. That's 6 down, 6 to go. And the second half is where the real money disappeared. The plug-in hybrids and the electric one. If this is the sort of thing you want more of, subscribe. That's the whole ask. Before we get to the electrified ones, 2 diesels that got caught by their own family. 7. The LDV Terron 9 Origin, launched here in July 2025. Bigger than the T60, 7-year 200,000 kilometre warranty, 2.5 litre with 163 kilowatts and 520 Newton meters. At launch, it was $59,990 drive away for ABN holders, briefly $49,990 on the launch promotion, and $53,674 drive away if you were a private buyer. By December, 5 months later, the ABN price on remaining MY25 stock was $47,990. So on identical Utes built in the same year, there's roughly a $5,500 to $6,000 spread depending on which door you walked through and which month you signed. The used market can't hold 12 versions of the truth. It settles on the lowest one it can find. Anybody who paid the private price in July 2025 is carrying that whole spread as invisible loss and nothing about their ute changed. 8. The MG U9. Same underpinnings as the Terron 9, same 2.5 diesel, same 8-speed out of the same parent company. The difference being multi-link coil rear suspension instead of leaf springs, which does genuinely ride better. It launched from $50,990 drive away up to $60,990 for the Explore Pro. By mid-2026, the Explore Pro was $59,990, the Explore X $55,990, and there was a black edition slotted in at $57,990. Here's the problem for anyone holding one. Your ute's value is capped by its cheaper twin. When LDV cuts the Terron 9 to move stock, the U9 doesn't get a phone call, but it gets the haircut anyway, because the used buyer looking at a big Chinese dual cab is looking at both. And there's a detail worth knowing if you're selling to a tradie. MG's 7-year warranty drops to 5 years and 160,000 kilometers for commercial use. The Terron 9's 7-year cover applies to everyone. Small print, real money, because the bloke buying your ute to work it is buying the warranty as much as the ute. 9. The GWM Canon Alpha PHEV, and now we're into the serious losses. February 2025, GWM announced it at $63,990 drive away. Before the first deliveries even landed in May, they cut it by up to $20,500, putting the Lux at $61,490. By the end of September, there was a limited time offer at $57,490. In 2026, the Lux PHEV is advertised at $54,390 drive away with $3,000 of savings baked in, and the Ultra at $59,300 with $5,000 off. That's the same ute, same badge, same drivetrain, roughly $9,500 lower in about a year of calendar time. Anyone who bought in that first February batch didn't lose money because they drove it. They lost it because a pricing decision was made in an office. Nothing about the ute got worse. It's 300 kilowatts, 750 newton meters, tows the full 3,500, and it will do well over 100 kilometers on battery, which is a legitimately impressive thing to have engineered into a ladder frame ute. 10. The GWM Canon Alpha Hybrid, and this is the one that bothers me most. It was Australia's first full hybrid 4x4 ute, 255 kilowatts, 648 newton meters, $64,490 drive away. Not a bad thing at all. It was doing about a third of all Canon Alpha sales. Then in July 2025, within weeks of the plug-in version arriving, GWM discontinued it. A spokesperson said the move wasn't down to a lack of popularity, but a desire to offer a range that connects with customer needs, and the plug-in was now cheaper than the hybrid it replaced. Read that from the driveway of the bloke who bought the hybrid in June. His ute became a 1-year-only Orphan variant, sitting in the range history as the odd one out, and priced below the plug-in that superseded it because that's how the used market treats a dead-end drivetrain. Always has. Then came the recalls. In August 2025, GWM recalled 2,458 Canon Alphas built between 2023 and 2025. Diesel, hybrid, and plug-in. Because the electric power steering wiring harness could contact the drive shaft and get damaged, with the notice warning of loss of power steering or engine shutdown without warning. Late in 2025, there was a second one covering 1,445 MI25 vehicles, including the Canon Alpha PHEV, this time a shielding ring in the high-voltage harness that may not have been properly grounded. Both were fixed free, both were handled properly, and a recall is a system working rather than failing. I want to be fair about that. But when a used buyer searches an unfamiliar badge and finds 2 harness recalls, he doesn't read it as a system working. He reads it as a reason to offer less or to buy the Hilux. That's not engineering. That's reputation arithmetic, and it lands on you. 11. The BYD Shark 6. The big seller, so the big number of affected owners. It launched at $57,900 before on-roads with drive-away pricing starting around $63,800 in 2025. And by 2026, the entry price had come back to roughly $62,000 with a wider range above it. It's a serious bit of kit, 321 kilowatts, 650 newton meters, about 100 kilometers of electric range, and it climbed to third best-selling ute in the country by mid-2026, with 3,198 sales in June alone. Now the used side. A 2025 premium with 323 kilometers, essentially new, was advertised at 52,385 drive away. One with 9,502 kilometres at 50,998. That private one with 26,500 kilometres at 49,200 flagged as around market. Those are asking prices, not sale prices, and this is where I have less standing than I'd like. I don't get to see the wholesale books. So I'm reading the shop window. Real transactions land under the ask, and a trade-in offer lands well under that again. My honest expectation on that 26,500 kilometre example, traded rather than sold privately, is mid-40s at best. There's a tax rule sitting underneath this too, and it explains more than the UT does. The fringe benefits tax exemption that made plug-in hybrids so cheap to salary package ended on 31st March 2025. PHEV sales reportedly jumped around 380% in that March, as people rushed to settle leases before the door shut. The Shark 6 arrived right on that boundary. Everyone who signed after it lost the tax break, which is a straight reduction in how many people can afford to want a used one. Battery electrics kept the exemption. Plug-ins didn't. If you can't work out why a plug-in hybrid ute is worth less than the brochure suggested, part of the answer is written in the Tax Act, not the workshop manual. 12. The LDV ET60, Australia's first electric dual cab, and the one I told you to wait for. It landed just before Christmas 2022 at $92,999 before on-road costs. 88,431 drive away for ABN holders. For that, you got 130 kilowatts, 310 newton meters, an 88.5 kilowatt hour battery, a claimed 330 kilometers of range, rear-wheel drive only, and a braked towing capacity of 1,000 kilograms. A third of what the diesel version of the same ute would pull. The diesel it was based on was under 50 grand. 79 were sold in 2023. Total sales here are reckoned to be around 100, nearly all to fleets and government buyers chasing an emissions target. In 2024, LDV halved the price in New Zealand from just under 80,000 New Zealand dollars to under 42. By 2025, car sales was describing the local car as a $100,000 ute and a sales flop, and the guides still list it at $92,909 today. That's the strange part I promised. The price list has barely moved. The market underneath it has fallen out completely. I'm not going to invent a resale figure for a vehicle with 100 examples in the country, because there is no reliable market. And that's exactly the problem. When there are no comparable sales, a valuer has nothing to anchor to, an insurer argues, and a dealer simply declines to bid. That's not depreciation. That's illiquidity, and it's worse. And the replacement? The Terron 9 was advertised as arriving in 2025, then quietly disappeared from LDV's Australian website. I have no explanation for that, and I'm not going to make one up. What I do know is that an ET60 owner now watches an electric D-Max arrive and an electric Hilux land at $74,990 before on-roads, and every one of those makes his ute older without him touching it. So that's the 12. Now the part that actually matters. Here's what you're told in every ad, in every yard, in every brochure in this segment. Limited time, drive away, no more to pay, save $5,000, ABN price, run out. Here's what's true. That discount is not a gift, and it is not the brand's money. It is taken directly out of the value of every one of those utes already sitting in a driveway. And if one of them is yours, you paid for that stranger's saving. Nobody rang you. Nobody had to. The offer was announced on a Tuesday and your ute was worth less by Wednesday. Watch the arithmetic on one of them. February 2025, Canon Alpha PHEV, $63,990 drive away. 12 months later, same variant, $54,190 with the savings included. If you were first in line, the enthusiastic one, the one who backed the new technology, you funded roughly $9,500 of somebody else's deal. You did not get a letter, you did not get a credit, you got the privilege of being early. Then there's the second half of it, which is cleverer. Two numbers, a recommended retail price of over $50,500 on a T60 Max Plus, and a real advertised brand new drive-away price of $41,990 on the same ute. When you're buying, they show you the big number, so the deal feels enormous. When you're selling, the market uses the small number, because that's what your competition actually costs. Nobody wrote a lie. They wrote two truths and let you keep the flattering one until the day it cost you money. And the third piece, the price in the ad often isn't your price at all. Terron 9 launch week, $59,990 drive away, with an ABN $53,174 without one. Identical ute. If you're a private buyer, you pay the top number and then sell into a used market that has priced itself off the bottom one. You are on the wrong side of that gap twice. None of this is a conspiracy. It's simpler and colder than that. A national sales target is written in units, not in your equity. Nobody in that meeting is being malicious. It's just that your resale value is not on anyone's spreadsheet, and there is no line item for it, and so it gets spent. But you know the sentence now. Limited time drive-away offer isn't a saving. It's a forecast of the floor under every used one, published in advance, for free, by the people who set it. Once you read it that way, it stops being a temptation and starts being information, and it's the single most useful number in the segment. Something worth sitting with, though. Every time you buy a vehicle, you're making a bet on what strangers will believe about it in 3 years. You can't control that. What you can do is get better at reading how settled a thing is. How long the nameplate has been here, how many are on the road, whether the brand can hold a price still for 12 months. That's a skill, and it's a different skill from knowing what's good. Some of the best utes on this list are the worst investments on it, and pretending otherwise doesn't help anyone. The other way out is the one the old hands in every trade have always taken, in every field where things wear out and get replaced. Buy it, understand it, service it properly, and keep it until it's finished. Depreciation only ever bites the person who hands the vehicle back. If you're still driving it at 300,000 kilometers, the graph never touches you. There's something quietly satisfying about being the last owner of something rather than the first. Nobody can reprice you out of a ute you have no intention of selling. Right, the method. This is the bit to write down. 1. Find what a brand new equivalent actually costs today, and get that from current dealer drive-away advertising, not from the recommended retail price. The RRP is not a market number. 2. Find the 3 cheapest genuine listings of your exact year and variant. Take about 8 to 10% off the asking price to get somewhere near a real private sale, and expect a dealer trade-in offer to land well below that again. 3. Subtract that from your finance payout if there's money owing. If the payout is bigger, you're in negative equity, and you need to know that before a salesman does. 4. The decision rule. If the gap between a brand new one and a 2-year-old one is under about $6,000 or $7,000, buying used makes very little sense in this segment. Take the new one with the full warranty. If the gap is $15,000 or more, the used one starts looking genuinely clever, provided you can live with the badge. 5. Before you buy anything here, check 2 things. Is that exact variant still in the current range, and has a replacement drivetrain been announced? An Orphan variant is the single fastest way to lose money in this market, and the Canon Alpha Hybrid is the proof. 6. If a national drive-away offer has just landed on the model you own, that's your new ceiling. Price under it or wait it out? Arguing with it will cost you 3 months and the same money. Take half an hour tonight, laptop, kettle, your own ute, run those 6 steps on it. By the end of that half hour, you'll know your real number instead of your brochure number. And I'd rather you learned it from me than from a bloke with a torch walking around your ute for 90 seconds. Now, I know exactly who's about to disagree. Mate, I bought it to work it. I don't care what it's worth in 3 years. I'll run it into the ground. Fair enough, and honestly, that's the right attitude. It's the one I just spent a paragraph praising. But your insurer cares because agreed value comes off these same numbers. Your financier cares because the payout doesn't move when the market does. And your family cares if the ute gets written off in year 2 and the check doesn't cover the loan. You can ignore resale. You can't ignore payout. So here's what I genuinely like in the comments, and I want the uncomfortable version. Tell me about the one you got wrong. The trade-in offer that made you laugh out loud. The ute you bought in the first month at full price and watched drop. The demo that turned out to cost $400 less than a brand new one. Nobody puts their own mistakes in writing, and that's exactly why they keep getting repeated. The bloke about to make yours this weekend is reading this section right now. And if you work in the trade, if you appraise these things, or wholesale them, or you're the one writing the number on the sheet, tell me where I've got it wrong. I'm reading advertised prices and published data, and you're seeing what they actually change hands for. I'd rather be corrected than agreed with, and I read the replies properly, not just the first few. There's one thread here I deliberately didn't pull because it needs its own run. What happens to these utes at 7 years and 1 day when the warranty that sold most of them expires, and the second-hand market has to decide what a used Chinese ute is worth on its own merits? I don't know the answer yet. Nobody does. The fleet's not old enough, but it's coming, and I'm going to be sitting there with a calculator when it does. Subscribe if you want to be there for it. Until then, check your own number before somebody else tells you what it is.